Welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. My name is Michael LeBlanc, and I am your host. This podcast is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Live from the main stage at RCC's Retail Sustainability Conference in Toronto, my discussion with two visionary retail leaders, Geraldine Huse, President of P&G Canada, and Georg Soleas, President and CEO of LCBO, as they offer invaluable insights from their respective organizations' journey to net zero, spotlighting the innovations, cultural changes, triumphs and tribulations on their path to real sustainable change. All right, everybody, thank you. What a great start to the morning. Let's keep the momentum. Geraldine, if you take that one chair over there, I'll take this one on the far right. We're recording this live for an episode of the Voice of Retail podcast, so you can share this with your colleagues. So let's hear the live, excited audience. All right. All right, we're going to keep, like I said, we're going to keep the momentum going. Geraldine, we're going to start with you, and we're going to talk about our time together in three parts. One is kind of establish what either or both your organizations are doing. We're going to then talk about how it incorporates into the business strategy, and then we're going to talk about advice for the folks in the audience. So let's start with you, Procter & Gamble, Ambition 2030. Let's talk about the four pillars, including Net Zero Ambition 2040. Take us through what the organization is doing.
Sure. So our Ambition 2030 is where we've laid out our targets for environmental sustainability, and we've split it into four pillars. So we have a climate pillar, a water pillar, a waste pillar, and a nature pillar. And we've got specific activities against all and specific targets. And on the climate pillar, as you rightly say, we're working towards net zero by 2040. So by 2030, we've got interim goals that says we'll reduce our carbon emissions by 50% across our operations, by 40% across supply chain, and we've got different actions to get us there, and then we need to develop more actions to get us to the net zero by 2040. So we're on a journey. And then similarly, in areas like waste, we have specific targets. So we're committed to move all our packaging to 100% recyclable or reusable by 2030, in line with what Galen was just talking. We've committed to use 50% less virgin plastic. And as we do that, EPR, as we were just talking about, is a key part of that. So, we support effective waste management at scale, and we need to develop the right infrastructure so we can collect it, we can segregate it, we can treat it, and then we can make it reusable, and then we create the right end market such that we can reduce the use of virgin plastic and we can recycle all that. But it needs collaboration, as Galen was just saying, to make that happen. Yeah, and global collaboration, because we'll talk about that later in our discussion.
Georg, the spirit of sustainability, it's more than environmental actions. It's a broad-based program, but if anyone is here from Ontario, you'd firsthand experience some of the achievements and the objectives. So take us through from a new headquarters, lightweight bottles, to bags in the stores, a lot of activity.
A lot of activity, and first of all, thank you for including us in this inaugural session of sustainability. Very important, honored to be here. So sustainability is not new to the LCBO. As you know, we've been around for more than 95 years. I haven't, but we've been around for 95 years. And in fact, since our inception, we've always talked about social responsibility. So what we really did in 2018 is we took an inventory of everything that we do in terms of corporate social responsibility, what are we doing for the environment, and we created a social impact platform with a mission. And really, we wanted to make a bold commitment to support the social and environmental needs of the province to create more of a sustainable Ontario. And as you know, we do deliver $2.6 billion of net dividend to the province of Ontario, which is about $55 million a week in net dividend. So that's meaningful, but we wanted to go...
Cheers to that, right?
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
We really wanted to go beyond that and do more of contribute more meaningfully. So we created what you called, or what we call the spirit of sustainability, which is basically supported by three pillars. And we decided to call it the good people, good planet, and good partnerships. And everybody said, well, what is the profit here? And really, if you can get those three P's right, they add up to profit. And yes, no sustainability program is sustainable if you're losing money. So that's exactly what we've done. So under the good people pillar, it's obviously the health and safety of our own people, engaging customers, but also the mandate that we have in terms of moderation. As you know, we're selling a product that can only be consumed in moderation. So the other good pillar is the good planet. And that speaks for itself. It's what are we doing as an organization to mitigate the waste that we generate? How are we being more energy efficient? And how are we diverting more of that waste from landfill sites? And the third pillar is the good partnerships. And this is about celebrating the people and the partners that we work with, but also learning from them and also influencing standards that they have. And yes, we are not a global company, we're not a manufacturer, we're not a retailer, but the world is our shopping basket. We buy from more than 80 different countries from around the world, so we can influence what our suppliers are doing elsewhere around the world.
Yeah. And to put some scale to that, historically you were one of the largest buyers in the world of spirits and wine, right?
Yeah, we are. If not the largest, we are one of the largest purchasers, retailers, and wholesalers of alcohol. So we feel that comes with a certain responsibility, and obviously that's also a lever for us to influence a lot of the things that are happening around the world from suppliers that we buy from. And each one of these initiatives and goals that we have is measurable. It has clear objectives. And we report on. So we have the sustainability impact report that we issue on a yearly basis. In fact, it will be in our food and drink in the holiday season coming up soon. Right. So you talked about some of the accomplishments so far. And
paper bags, the latest.
So we just talked about paper bags, which I think is one of the smallest accomplishments because 10 years ago, we were one of the first ones to eliminate paper bags. And recently, we just eliminated, we made the announcement last April, and September 1st, we've eliminated completely any one-use paper bags from our stores. Now, that's saving 188,000 trees, 2,700 tons of waste diverted from landfill sites, and really 135 million paper bags that we were using on a yearly basis. But another very important initiative that we started a few years ago, which we're very proud of, is what is called today the Canada bottle. So we had some issues. When you have people in the warehouses and in the retail stores slagging a 22-kilogram case, it's backbreaking. So we looked for ways to reduce the glass weight of these bottles. Because it saves the environment, it uses less energy, but it also helps our own people. And in fact, we were able to reduce 82% of our lost time injuries in our warehouses, in our retail stores. And what we did is we did a lot of research, worked very collaboratively with suppliers around the world, including suppliers of glass manufacturers. And we came up with a lightweight glass of 420 grams for any wine that we sell that is less than $18.95. In a 750 ml bottle. So today, we are able to reduce 6 million kilograms of glass on an annual basis because of that. And I mentioned before that because of our size, we can influence. You know what? Today, it's called the Canada bottle. It is used globally. In fact, yesterday I was at a tasting of Napa Valley Cab Sauves, and one of the ladies that was pouring said to me, this is a $200 wine. It is a lightweight glass. So it's not just for the less than $18.95, which is 80% of the wines that we sell at the LCBO, but it's for everybody. So that's a huge achievement, in my opinion, in terms of reducing glass weight, in terms of reducing waste, energy, and also saving the backs of our people and reducing musculoskeletal injuries. Another thing that we do is any store that we build today, or we renovate, or we relocate, is either LEED certified or close to LEED certified. In fact, we just moved into a brand new head office at Queens Quay, and that is a LEED certified, platinum certified building. But one of the things that we're also very proud of, which is a huge secret, is the quality assurance that we have at the LCBO. It's a best in class. We are the only liquor jurisdiction in the world that chemically tests and organoleptically evaluates everything that we sell. And we do that because, A, we want to make sure that the products that you pick up from our shelves are authentic, they're safe, and you feel comfortable to drink those products. Anything that you buy from us, you consume, you put in your body. You want to make sure that it's safe. But what we've done there, again, because of our size, is we were able to set standards that were more stringent than the maximum allowable limits of other regulators, like food and drug regulations, etc. So gradually, working with our suppliers around the world, we were able to reduce those maximum allowable limits to almost zero. So today, 99.8% of the products that you buy from us are free of any contaminants. And the other 0.2% meet those very stringent guidelines that we put in place. So what does that mean? What it means is that all these suppliers and grape growers and other crops that are used to produce alcohol are now either not using these pesticides or they use them sustainably. And that protects the environment, it protects their water supply, it protects the health and safety of their people, and it's actually less money.
So
these are just some of the things that we're doing,
All from an Ontario retailer. It's fantastic. Geraldine, when we talk about scope, I think of your organization, Procter & Gamble, global company. How many countries do you operate in?
180.
180. So how do you stitch together the overall project objectives with so many jurisdictions, so many countries? As Galen Weston said, Canada may be advanced in some areas. And then how do you participate in that as the Canadian country lead, and what contribution do we make?
Mm-hmm. So we've made global targets, but then each country and each category has their own specific action plans to go towards those global targets. And what we've also realised is we don't need to just look at what we do in our own operations. So, we've moved all our plants to zero waste to landfill. We can work on our own packaging to make everything recyclable and reusable. We can reduce water. We can reduce carbon emissions in our own operations. But actually, we have to look at the whole life cycle of our product. And that's what we do in each individual market. So if I take, Canada, if we take something like Tide, when we look at the energy in producing Tide, and from producing it all the way through to usage, most of the energy usage is actually in the consumer's home. So we can do a whole lot of work by working with consumers, and if we can get them to wash in cold water instead of hot water, it reduces the energy usage by 90%. So it's a massive positive impact on the environment by doing that.
I still remember the days of buying Tide in a box that was about
exactly.
This big, right?
Compacting Tide, moving to liquid, now moving to the pods is much more compacted, so it uses a lot less material, a lot less carbon emissions, because you can put a lot more on the truck. So if I think about the cold water washing, hopefully you've all seen the communication from Tide on washing cold water, because we've driven the technology so it works just as well in cold water. And we've got 70% of Canadians now washing in cold water. So that saves on, energy bills, and it can save a consumer $150 a year. Things like that can make a massive impact. Similarly, on Cascade, the automatic dishwashing product, we've realised that a lot of people won't run a dishwasher until the dishwasher's full. But actually, if you run the dishwasher even when it's half full, it uses only 25% of the water than you'd use if you hand washed it. So you can save a huge amount of water by running a dishwasher even when it's half full, and you can save energy because of all the hot water that comes out of the tap. So that can save 1,000 metric tons of water by running dishwashers just on half full instead of always full. Yeah. And that can save on energy bills as well. So, what we do is we do a lot of work along the whole supply chain, and how we can work together to reduce the environmental impact.
Let's, P&G is very famous for being very customer-focused, right to the point where you've got people living and opening up people's cupboards in their houses, doing research and seeing what's going on. Talk about the reception of consumers. You mentioned, 70% have shifted to cold water. But, there's what consumers say and then what consumers actually do. So how do you bridge those two things, or how do you understand how to bridge those two things in your overall objectives?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we talk a lot to consumers, and we know that in Canada, 90% of consumers want to live more sustainably. So that's a huge advantage versus some other markets. But we also know from talking to consumers that only 11% feel they do, because they don't know how to.
11% feel they do.
Yeah, because they feel they don't know how to, they don't know what they need to do. So things like educating consumers on cold water washing or running a dishwasher when it's half full, that's a quick and easy thing to educate them on. But what we've also learned is they don't actually want trade-offs. So they don't want something to work less well by making it sustainable. Right. So as we drive our innovation, we drive superiority in how the product performs in a sustainable way, but without the trade-offs. And we find, as we keep working on that, we can find lots of ways that we can achieve both. But that's really what the consumer's looking for. Irresistible superiority that is sustainable, not sustainability, but potentially a less performing product.
They're still looking for their kids' clothes to be spotless after a rinse of Tide, right? That's not going to change. I want to shift the conversation a little bit to strategy and culture in your respective organizations. So, George, how do you inculcate? The spirit of sustainability is obviously a very broad. As you said, responsibility is kind of in the DNA of the LCBO. It's kind of the genesis of the organization. But when you sit down with your team and craft a strategy, objectives for the business, how do you inculcate sustainability in that? You've talked about reducing glass waste to affect, make it a better life for the employees. But how does it incorporate itself into how you make buying decisions, for example? How does that all come together?
Yeah. Look, as I said before, although we're not a manufacturer or producer, and we're not global, we do business with more than 80 different countries around the world, and we feel that we are the ones that face the customer. We are the ambassadors of all these suppliers. We're the advocates of these suppliers, so we want to make sure that we understand what sort of programs they have, what are they doing that we can actually tell the customer that the product that we're selling for them, it is sustainable, it is ethical, it is what the customer is looking for. So it is incredibly important for us, to start to understand what the supplier is doing and what does the product stand for. But at the same time, as you know, we are a retailer and a wholesaler, so we are a supplier, a supply chain also. So we have warehouses. We deal with freight forwarders. We deal with vessels. We deal with carriers. We have our own waste generation as well. So we look at all of that to make sure that we have initiatives that address the people and the planet, as I mentioned before. But it's not only about the people and the planet. It's also about the diversity within our industry as well. So that's something that we continue to forget, that's part of sustainability also. So we do have initiatives that are and goals that are part of our strategic plan, the 3-year strat plan. But a lot of these, or all of these initiatives, are actually threaded or linked to strategy priorities. So, and all of that has key performance indicators that are very clear and measurable with timelines.
Geraldine, let's talk about, we talked a little bit about trade-offs, so let's talk about culture. And I'm very curious as to how your organization, performance-driven, you still have to put the numbers up on the board globally, how you inculcate into the actual culture on a day-to-day basis here in Canada, globally. Let's talk about here in Canada. You've got decades of experience in this organization. How do you do that with your individuals so that they're thinking sustainability objectives in and amongst all their other many objectives that I'm sure they're accountable for?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the first thing I'd say, and Galen talked about kind of the cost of it sometimes, is in our culture what we're saying is it's not a choice, it's an imperative. So the reality is, if as a society we keep generating waste at the rate that we're generating waste, if we keep using raw materials at the rate we're using raw materials, we're going to need 3 planets by 2050 globally. And we're not going to have 3 planets by 2050.
It's kind of a false trade-off, in other words.
So we have to do it, and P&G has been around for 180 years. We want to be around for another 180 years. So, we have to change things. And you'll hear our CEO talking that message as well. So it's an absolute imperative, and it's built into, what we do day to day. But we also look to make every individual accountable. So we encourage people to think about what can you do. And, in our opinion survey, we have a question that says, does what I do day to day help sustainability? And we want everybody to answer yes, because we want them to be thinking about it and we want it to be part of their work. So that's built into how we do work. And we also encourage employees to come up with ideas. So as well as, big ideas like changing our packaging, for example, on Gillette and Venus, we've just changed all our packaging from plastic to cardboard, which obviously makes an impact. On Dawn, we've moved to a concentrated version of Dawn. So now a bottle of Dawn will wash 3 times more dishes than a dilute bottle of washing up liquid. So they're kind of big initiatives, if you like, but we also encourage individuals. So, for example, at one of our plants where we're making Dawn, we were looking at reducing water in the operations. And he said, look, there is some wastewater that goes down the drain, and we've got a car wash next door. So why don't we siphon it to the car wash? And so it's everyday examples, like that, that make a difference. Another example is at our Gillette plant. When you're making disposable razors, the little plastic bits, you might think, well, how do you recycle or reuse that? And again, somebody at the plant said, look, I know of a company that's working on some craft designs where they take all sorts of bits and bobs of waste and turn it into plant pots and coat hangers. So these little bits that we're not sure how to recycle, let's give it to them and they can use it. So we encourage people to come up with these little ideas as well as the, mega ideas. Like, at that plant, we'd moved all our energy to renewable energy, which is what we're doing in all our plants. So there's big ideas, but there's also small ideas. And by everybody having an accountability, we encourage them to come forward. And I'm proud to say our office here in Toronto has just moved to zero waste to landfill because of a group of interns and new recruits at P&G who said, look, we're recycling most of our things, but there's a proportion that's still going to landfill. So we need to do something differently. And they've come up with a project so that our office is zero waste to landfill. So it's very much built in and talked about, and we want people to take actions.
Does it go as far as being part of the compensation for whether it's bonuses for great ideas, or is there a part of that you see in the future or even today that takes into people's compensation, how they get paid and what they get paid for, that they keep their eye on sustainability goals?
So we definitely have our global targets, which we're totally committed to, and we will make that happen, and that ties into the overall results of the company. And then it varies by every individual's work plan. They all have individual targets. Some of them will include sustainability targets. Yeah,
I suspect a scientist, for example, that break through making those pods. George, let's talk about, there's so many great things going on at the LCBO. Let's talk about, for a minute, a negative rather than a positive. So you do many initiatives, perhaps 1 or 2 of them aren't successful. How do you take those in, and I'm making an assumption there, but I have one in mind, how do you take those learnings in and if you have the experience of that and
what do you have in mind?
Well, I do think about box wine because I love wine and for years I wouldn't, I didn't love the corks going away and the screw caps going on, and then I see boxed wine as a very efficient way to ship wine, but it's a little less impressive to put on the table with friends. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, by the way, screw caps are actually working very well, and in fact today the industry has agglomerate corks that are not tainted, that work very well also. But you're talking about box wine, and I don't think you're talking about the bag-in-a-box, which is actually very successful. You're probably talking about Tetra Pak, the smaller boxes. But one example that I was thinking of is actually PET, and Galen talked about PET before. And we're always pressuring our suppliers to come up with innovative solutions when it comes to packaging. And one of the innovative solutions that they came up with was putting wine in PET bottles. And it really didn't work out. People were not interested in buying wine in a PET bottle. They will buy spirits in a PET bottle, but not wine. And as you know, wine is very sensitive to oxygen and other elements. So consumers felt that it wasn't the right package for them. But that was the problem. The opportunity was to come up with a lighter weight glass bottle. That's what really pushed us to look at alternatives to the PET bottle. The PET bottle was lighter. It was much easier to carry. It was less weight for our people to carry in the warehouses as well as in retail. So that was an opportunity. Yes, there was a problem. It didn't work out, but we saw an opportunity, and hence we came up with what is called today the Canada bottle.
Excellent. Yeah. Geraldine, let's talk about. There must be a lot of projects happening both here and in Canada and around the world. What are you most excited about in this space? What gets you up and thinking about this topic the most of what you see in front of you today or tomorrow?
I mean, I think there's all sorts of things, and I think the fact we're all here today, we're all excited about everything we can all do, and we know that all of us as individuals can make an impact. We can all do things in our home, in our day-to-day lives, as employers, as employees, and in our business. I think the thing that really excites me is the opportunity for partnership and collaboration, because we can all together make much more progress. And we were talking before about EPR and the waste management systems, and something we're piloting here in Canada at the moment is a digital watermark on packaging, such that in the waste management processing, the packaging can be identified as to what it is, so that then more effectively segregates it. And then if it's effectively segregated, it's easier to treat it and then turn it into reusable materials. And then another example, as we've gone down that line, is we've found that some of the polypropylene that goes for recycling is not usable at the end, and particularly food containers. So if you think about getting a curry from Uber Eats, a chicken madras, the plastic sometimes ends up orange. You might have experienced this. And even if you wash it, it's still orange and it's still got a fragrance to it. Yeah. And one of our scientists actually, and he's into cleaning, so he should be an expert on this, he's engineered this non-toxic solvent that can clean even that kind of polypropylene waste plastic and take the odour away from it, take the stain away from it, which makes it then reusable. And that's what we're now sharing with the industry to use that across the industry. So I think as, individual companies and individuals come up with things, different companies do different things. When we collaborate together, we can really make inroads. And Galen mentioned there isn't enough supply of recycled plastic to enable us to meet all the plastic needs that we have here in Canada. So things like better segregation, so more is recycled, things like this new non-toxic solvent that can clean the polypropylene to make it reusable, these things are really powerful. So I think the more we all talk together and collaborate and come up with new solutions, that's what's getting me excited, that we can really make some major progress.
Well, that's a great segue into the last section, our last couple of questions, which is advice for the people in the room and the people listening to the episode. So lots of retailers sitting in the room. When you, day to day, you and your team collaborate with them. Advice to the retailers sitting in the room when they're talking to your sales reps and your leaders?
I mean, I think it all starts with a commitment to improving the environmental footprint we've all got, and then looking at what are the different things that we can do. And don't worry about changing the world and fixing everything tomorrow, because nobody can. But what are the different things you could do in the areas of climate, water, waste, nature, which are the areas we're focused on, whatever the pillars are for you. And however small, like I mentioned those small examples about, putting our wastewater to the local car wash.
Yeah,
all the little things help, and out of little things, big things grow. And I think if we all just keep acting and keep talking, we can make, massive progress. And I see it as a flywheel, and we're starting to accelerate. And I think Canada is a great market for that, because there's a commitment from industry, from government, from consumers here. You can see the progress coming, and people want to make a difference. People want to know how, and we can help them with that, but I would say just start, and don't worry if it's small, just make progress.
Little follow-on for that advice. There's lots of suppliers in the room, people who would want to talk to your organization about selling you services and goods, and a fair amount of government folks in the room who understand and set policy. Advice to them?
Yeah, let's keep talking. So I talked to the minister just before we started, and we were talking about the EPR infrastructure and what works and what could make it even better. And, you know, we've got a list of things we think could make it even better. So let's just keep talking, because I think we've all got different areas of expertise and experiences. And the more we talk together, the more progress we can make. Same with retailers. You know, we've made lots of progress with many of our retailers. And, you know, as we talk together, you know, we see little things and big things we can do differently. I mean, just things like trucks on the road. So, like, if we deliver to a retail store, what we don't want is that truck to go away empty. You know, it can then, you know, go from, you know, our plant to a retail distribution centre to a store, and then on the way back it can go via, you know, the distribution centre again back to a store. But what's the most efficient way if we look at the whole supply chain together, rather than just, you know, from our plant to a distribution centre, then coming back empty and then going back full and then coming back empty? If you link in all the retail stores, we've made some massive savings in that area.
Fantastic. George, last words to you as the retailer on the stage, advice to the folks in the room about suppliers, vendors, working with the LCBO and making sure you achieve your objectives together.
I agree with Geraldine. Sustainability is a journey, and you may not be able to do everything overnight, but you can at least start somewhere. And in my opinion, it really needs to start from the top. You as a leader, if you're passionate about it, if you're authentic about it, you need to choose the right champions and the right advocates, the right ambassadors. And all of that message needs to be cascaded down to the entire organization. If you're going to be successful as an organization in this area, it really needs to become a core value of the organization. It needs to become a way of life, no different than health and safety. And everything you do, it needs to have a sustainability initiative or a thread. And it has to be part of your strategic plan and your strategic priorities. So, first thing you do is really take an inventory of what you're doing today, because I bet you're doing a lot of things that you're not measuring. And once you start measuring, you'll be able to continue raising the bar for each one of those initiatives.
And you're going to want to hear those things from your suppliers and vendors, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And in terms of our suppliers, we do have a supplier code of conduct we've just renewed. We're very proud of it because it is what we stand for. It's on our LCBO.com site, and it's something that we always tell suppliers to look at and to ensure that they comply with those standards, because this is exactly what we stand for, is that supplier code of conduct.
Fantastic. Great discussion, Geraldine, George. Thanks so much for joining me on the stage, and let's give a hand to our speakers and get ready for our next thing. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure and check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis and the Global E-Commerce Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Senior Retail Advisor, Keynote Speaker, Rethink Retail 2023 Global Top Retail Influencer. If you want more content or chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.